Got a packed house here.
Some of the leading people in the first panel, such as James Randi. And then there's the infamous DJ Brody. And this is Jeff Wag. And Ben Radford. And this little annoying author guy, he has like a blog and he thinks he wrote a book a while back. He hasn't written another one for a while.
Has he read one lately?
Phil Blade, available on October 20th. And all the way from down under, on the other side of the world, is Richard Saunders. Yeah. Well, because this is Skeptics 101, and I think, Jeff asked the first question was how many people here say they're skeptics. That was pretty much everybody. Here's another question that's a little more fine, just because it's a curiosity of mine. All those people here, most are already in the room, raise their hand. How many people here also have a faith in God as well? This is a question.
Wow.
Well, I ask that question because it's quite often the case when a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of skeptics who also have faith. And it's, for many skeptics, it's a very odd thing. Actually, I think we have like a panel about it with Lori Lippin Brown, who's coming to the con in a couple hours from now. And she's going to be here as well, but not for this panel. But for the most part, this panel is really about each one of these people will describe themselves, what they've been involved with, and then after that it's more a QA for the things you always wanted to ask people such as these, like James Randi and Phil Plait, because he might want to talk about his new book, because I said he doesn't had a book for a while, but he has a new one coming out. I'm just giving him crap because he likes it. So I will let them start from James Randi going that way. So James, you can start and talk about yourself.
I will just begin by saying that I have a disappointment for most of you, I'm sure, today. I will not be doing my naked dance on fire. I know the disappointment is huge, but I've found recently there's not that much call for it anymore. I have no idea why that would be. I will just tell you that I put on my site some very many months ago now, that I finally got a look at myself in the mirror after coming back from the hospital and numerous operations with complications, and I said that my body resembled an old piece of parchment that Indiana Jones might have taken off for the lost city of Babylon, with little purple marks and X's and various things like, don't touch this. No, the naked dance on fire has not been requested. So I know that some of you will be hardly disappointed in that, but I have photographs to say on that. We just came back from the Galapagos on our Galapagos adventure. I'm speechless when I try to describe it. It was an experience that I will never forget. And Jeff will agree. Well, everyone who went along on it. How many were on the Galapagos tour? Right? Well, we got a few people. Yeah, there you go. Hi. Scott, Sean, whatnot. Yes, it was a great experience, and we're going to be doing it again. Whether it's going to be exactly next year or in what month, we don't know yet. But stay tuned. It is something you will not want to miss. Darwin was right, by the way. I got to meet Lonesome George at a certain distance away, of course. He's the tortoise that actually met Charles Darwin. I tried to fool him. I said, "Hello, I'm back." And he just looked at me, sheesh, another one, you know. He's wiser than I thought. So anyway, welcome to this heady group here, and I hope that we will have some interesting questions, some confrontations perhaps, maybe a fist fight or two couldn't hurt. That's the nature of the beast, I guess. So thank you very much, and welcome.
I take it we're going this way. I am DJ.
Well, okay, let's look at this, you know, in the scientific, skeptical point of view, because ultimately, to my mind, science is skepticism, and the methodology is the same. So, and I just want to thank Derek and everyone else here for making this very attractive last year. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, this one's working a lot better. I actually wanted to throw out send our props to Derek and Swoopy and Michael for getting all this organized and doing all this. It's too early to say it's a success, so we'll take a look at this again on Monday and we'll check it out and make sure everything's cool here. Okay. So I'm Phil Plate, and I'm a skeptic, I guess. Trying to self-identify what I'm in the middle of right now would take too long. But I run the Bad Astronomy website, and I'm now the president of the James Randi Educational Foundation, which is not to say. I definitely want to throw out the caveat, because everybody keeps asking me, well, what's Randi going to be doing? It's like, Randy's doing everything he's doing. It's not like I'm pushing this guy out. I mean, that's not going to happen. That's literally, I don't think it can. But I do want to say, on the Galapagos, I was talking about this with somebody else who was on the cruise, and you go from the boat. You get on one of those little, and I hate to call them this, but they're called zodiacs. The little rafts that go from the boat and they take you to the shore. And you know, we're going over the waves, and there's water everywhere, and we get off these things and we're soaking wet. Randy, who is wearing a button-down shirt and khaki pants, rolls them up past his ankles. Never got a drop on him. So, A over here, hi, wave A, she's another skeptic over here, pardon me. And she was the one who pointed this out, and I realized that the obvious reason for this is that Randy can walk on water. So, yeah.
Show us the palms of your hands.
So I'm not gonna go into any details about me, because I'm online, and if you need it, you got a wireless connection. You can look all that up, and I'm looking forward to answering questions that anybody has, and I'll hand this over to my friend Richard Saunders.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, forgive me for reading from a little card here, but I do so many things I forget myself. I've recently been on Australian TV as Australia's biggest skeptic on a TV show called The One. And one clap. That was it. That was the one.
That was the one.
Okay, the show was the search for Australia's greatest psychic, most gifted psychic or something. You can see it on YouTube. Just type in The One Saunders or Psychics or something like that. Yes, I do get recognised in the street now when I walk down the street in Sydney, and people usually come up to me and say, "You meanie." You meanie. Because I thought I was a polite voice of science and reason on the show, but to the paranormal brigade I was a heretic. I was questioning their magical powers, but the show was the top rating show in the country, which surprised me. And the producers rang me up saying, "Oh, Richard, did you hear the show's the top rating show?" And I said, "I had no idea I was so popular." That was very nice. Also briefly, I'm the current vice president of Australian Skeptics. Australian Skeptics was kicked off by the gentleman at the other end there, Mr. Randi, who inspired the movement in 1981. So we thank him for that. I also do a show for schools, grade schools and high schools, called The Mystery Investigators, where we go into schools, and it's a teaching kids how to do basic science, but using the paranormal as the hook. So we have talk to them about the physics of firewalking, for example, and things like that. I'm also the producer of what was the Tank podcast and vodcast, formerly the Skeptic Tank, and we're about to revamp that once again. And I invented the origami pig for James Randi, which is Pegasus. I'm doing a whole talk on that in a couple of days' time in another tract, actually, all about making the pig. So, I love the pig. And this pig, I will give this pig, I just made this pig, I'll give this pig to anybody who can eat a whole one of these musk sticks from Australia, who's never tried one before.
Do not do it. Do not do it.
Come see me later. If you can eat a whole one, you get the pig. So, thank you.
Notice the Pegasus won't eat the Vegemite. These make excellent suppositories.
Before or after?
Yeah. There's no difference.
You're all day, aren't you? Right?
Yeah, thank you. Tip your waitress.
So does anybody have any questions for all the panels or any particular one?
Me?
I'm going to give it to the person I can just saw first. Maybe it was the pink hair.
Yeah, I do tend to stand out in a crowd. I'm new to the skeptic world. I'm a recently reformed magical thinker, and so I'm looking for advice on how to continue my recovery, because my friends are all magical thinkers, and I just don't, it's so easy for me to get back into that pattern when I'm around them. Can I get some help?
Step 1, attend the Skeptrack at DragonCon.
Well, that's a good question. That's an excellent question, and I get asked it quite frequently on email, in person, over the telephone, and in so many different ways. We have got to have a certain amount of sympathy with those folks who have had magical thinking plague them most of their lives, and we've got to celebrate the fact that they have come around to embrace reason. But we've got to understand why this is. I think it's mostly, this is my observation over these many years, I think it's mostly due to the media, who support all sorts of woo-woo aspects because there's money in it. Now, Mr. Saunders has just told us that, about the series The One, that it was searching for Australia's greatest psychic. I put, I think on Swift, I put a notice that it was probably going to find Australia's least failed psychic. Because they all did very badly, so they had to find the one that did least badly. The least failed psychic would have been a much better terminology for it. The evidence is just not there, folks, when you really examine it, and I think that Red down there will agree with me probably. When you really get to look at it dispassionately and you don't allow yourself to be talked into this business of this is a more comfortable point of view, a more comfortable attitude, a more comfortable belief structure, if you're not content just to be comfortable but you'd like some reality in your life, it's quite a change, it's quite a step to take. And I've talked people through it, I've held them by the hand and sort of nursed them through the painful experience. It is a painful experience, so be sympathetic to that. You have to realize that people who have more or less accepted what the media would have them accept, which is the woo-woo aspect, which is infinitely more popular than the skeptical aspect of our lives and of our existence. When they've been through that, they require a certain amount of sympathy, and I don't do this disparagingly at all. I just want to express that thought. Be sympathetic and understanding of these folks and treat them kindly because they've had quite a traumatic experience.
To follow up on that, I find your question just really interesting, and it's the perfect question to kind of frame all of our discussion. You spoke about your experience becoming a skeptic almost in a conversion term, right? Or a deconversion term. So I think what I'm really interested in is how skepticism is not just a worldview, it's not just a method of inquiry, but look at this, it's a movement, it's a community of people who say, I'm on this side of the fence, I care about these values, and I want to advance them. Now, that riles even some within our movement, because they don't want to seem too churchy. They don't want to seem like the cultural competitors who are advancing woo out there. But the fact that at the leading sci-fi and fantasy convention in the nation, all of us have convened to talk not only about sci-fi and fantasy, but about skepticism, says that there's something to this being a movement, and that's what interests me most.
I'll just add to that, if I may, briefly. I travel all over the world, as you know, and a gentleman in Copenhagen, this is a couple of years back, actually ran through traffic to get to me at great risk. And he sees me and he said, "Are you James Randi?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I'm a skeptic too." And I looked at him and said, "I doubt that." I have to stay in character, of course, you see. But we went and had a cup of coffee after, and he told me what so many people tell me, and some people right here are ready to tell me. They're ready to buttonhole me out in the corridor and say, "You know, until your movement came along, until we saw that there was a skeptical community, I thought I was the only person who thought this way." Now, I didn't have the advantage of having that conversion myself. Look at Michael Shermer, for example. He was a born-again Christian right into his college days, and at a certain point he looked around and said, "Wait a minute," and the epiphany came. I never had the epiphany. As I spoke to Andrew Hart, my colleague, some years ago, he was sitting in my office, and I just turned to him and I said, "Andrew, at what point did you get the epiphany?" And he said, "Oh, I've always thought this way." And I thought to him, I thought to myself, and I expressed to him, yes, when I was this tall, I found out that the 25 cents that I was going to put on the plate at Sunday school would buy a double-dip ice cream sundae at Bernie's Drugstore. And up until then, I had an allowance of only 20 cents, and that was a single dip, and the difference is phenomenal, I can tell you. I did much better with that 25 cents than I would have done putting it on the collection plate. I was actually thrown out of Sunday school, I'm proud to say. Next question. And they're arranged in the box, boy, girl, which is the way it should be. Now, this one, oh, I didn't look. Yeah, this is the girl, and her name is Anna. I happen to know that, don't ask me how. And this is obviously the boy, yes. And his name is Abe. So when I put them together, what have I got? A banana. Isn't that awful? All right, now, you get a choice, young lady. Which one would you like? Would you like Abe or would you like Anna? All right, I'll take Anna here. Now, Abe will go into my hand like this, see? And so that the light doesn't fall on it. Open up your hand for me if you'd be so kind. Hold it like that and make sure the light doesn't fall on it. That's it. Very good. That's very good. Now, I have this one. The funny thing is when they occur in the box together like that, whoops. When they occur in the box together like that, they get to know one another. I don't want to get into all the details. It's a sordid story. But the funny thing is, they want to get together again after they've been separated. Open up your hand. You have two of them. Well, you've got three of them. They had children. You try this one.
Sophie says she closed her curtains.
No, it's only two. That's where it should be.
So I thought no one tried.
A miracle of the semi-religious nature. Lots of applause, yes. Not always, but sometimes.
I am a PhD hard scientist.
Okay.
For 40 years, and I want to tell you why I'm still not willing to say yes.
And there's not this cult of secrecy.